Want me to play?
Yeah, go for it.
That's the first thing that came to mind.
Love it. Love it. A little Pool in the Rain, a little Purdy shuffle for us.
Yeah. Hey, a little, yeah. A little Purdy.
What's up, everybody? Happy New Year. Thanks for joining us once again on the Drummers Education Connection. We're so happy to be here every Tuesday morning, 11 o'clock Pacific time. My name is Jeremy Steinkohler. I'm here with my dear friends, terrific drummers, great educators, and just cool dudes. Bart Robley, Southern California.
Hello.
Trip Ritter from Tucson, Arizona. We are missing our fourth compatriot today, Rick Stojak, who's visiting his mom. So we wish him the best on that trip. And we are very happy to have today a very special guest, a guy I just met about a month ago, terrific drummer. And we're going to tell you all about this really cool thing that he's got going on. Welcome, Jason Slota.
Hey.
Jason, nice to meet you.
Thanks for coming on with us, man. I appreciate it.
Appreciate you having me, man. This is great. I really like what you guys are doing. And it's very cool. And I'm happy to be here.
Beautiful. Before we get into it with Jason, we're going to do just a little bit of housekeeping. We're going to remind you that if you want to support what we do, if you like the content we provide, we have a Patreon page. You can click on the link and support with just even $1, $2, $3. We have things we give away for that, our books, Chip's juggling videos, and all sorts of cool stuff. And what else did I forget to do? Oh, want to thank Aquarian Drumheads for sponsoring our show as ever. And did I miss anything, Bart?
I don't think so.
Okay, so before we jump in, we do like to start with a very short segment that we call Good Things. And this is just a way for us to check in with each other and see about what we have going on that's good. And it doesn't have to be music related. It could be family. It could be you enjoyed the sunlight in the park today, whatever. But it's also a chance for us to check in and hear about each other's stuff that we have. So I'm going to kick it to Bart and say, Bart, what do you got going on that's good right now?
I got a lot of stuff going on right now that's fantastic. The band's doing good. We're getting ready to head out on tour next week for not a real long one. We're going to be out for a week and be back home. I signed, I think at the end of the year last year, I talked about signing a song to Crucial Music, and I just finished inking a deal with a Canadian record label for my side project, The Ruins, and that's all coming to fruition now. So that we're putting the last little things together to send over to them. So that's going great. That's going really good. So that's what's going on with me. Chip, what's happening with you, buddy?
I enjoyed the sunlight in the park today. I really did. I had a good walk. I'm doing walking thing 3 days a week with my friend Carl Cherry, and we talk shop, talk music, and walk around the block. It's pretty good. I'm doing good. I got a gig on May 5th coming up in a few months. I thought that was really fun. I'm going to be playing down by the U of A and doing my thing. And other than that, I'm just teaching and playing at the church, having a good time, man. How about you, Jeremy?
Chip, aren't you also playing at the Breast Cancer Can Stick It fundraiser in Dallas?
I might be, but I'm not allowed to say that on air yet.
Sorry. So that's sorry about that. Put the cat out of the bag. I should focus on my own cats. You can keep your cat. Let's see. Very exciting. Evan, I can't remember if I mentioned it last time. My son Evan is a high school senior, and he just got into Berklee School of Music, which is great. And we're waiting to hear. I'm taking him on a trip for a bunch of auditions next month. Around the country to audition for these programs that he's got accepted an audition for. So that's really cool. Just this yesterday, got the final masters back from my recording with my band Mophone, which is a trio of 2 saxophones and drums. We played at Monterey Jazz Festival last year, and we just finished our 4th full-length album. Really, really excited about it. And we have our release show, Jason, on January 20th at the Back Room. So if you're around, I'd love to have you come.
I'm going to put it in the calendar right now.
Right on.
I got your email this morning, man. Congratulations on that. I'm sure you're really excited. I can't wait to hear the record.
Yeah,
that is cool.
Thanks, guys. It's the best record we've made, and we had some really, really great people working on it. Michael Romanowski, who's mastered it. He's worked with Sting and Alicia Keys and George Strait and all these really big people, and he did a fantastic job on it. And Dan Feisley, I don't know if you've worked with Dan, Jason. terrific bass player, terrific engineer, and he engineered and mixed it for us. So very excited about that. And I also want to mention that I took over the break a terrific seminar with Matt Starr, who's been a guest on our show before. Terrific drummer, plays with Ace Frehley from KISS, and he's got a networking for musicians kind of online seminar that he does that was super, super informative and helpful, and I highly recommend it. I bet he's going to do it again soon. So if you happen to run into Matt Starr with 2 R's, just like Ringo, online, I highly recommend checking him out and his stuff. Jason, what's going on with you?
Oh, well, I am just getting back into being a drummer again. I was off for a couple of weeks for family time, and I love it. I love taking a break because so often I think in our line of work it's just nose down, and I'm working 24/7. There's no break, and I'm thankful and happy that my family is happy and healthy, and I get to spend time with them for 2 weeks solid, and it's a real time. But then the good thing is I get to come back and jump right back into things because there's a lot to do. So I'm happy that people continue to call me, and good things are happening, continue to call me for sessions and drum work, and things just keep kind of rolling in, despite my best efforts. Continue to call me to play drums. So yeah, I'm thankful and happy about all the new year and the new stuff, all the stuff that's yet to come to fruition, and exciting times for me.
Beautiful. Yeah. So, Jason, I met you just about a month ago. For those of you who don't know, Jason, in addition to being a busy session drummer and performer in the Bay Area, he runs a shop. He has a cymbal shop, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, are you sitting in your cymbal shop?
I'm actually sitting in my home studio, so I have 2 separate rooms.
Gotcha.
The cymbal shop is outside, is in an outbuilding.
So
my home studio.
But you run it out of your house?
Yes, I do. So
Cool.
As long as the city of Oakland is not watching this, we're okay.
That's Oakland, Kansas, by the way.
Oakland, Kansas, Tanzania.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
You're in another country.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So I run it's a by appointment cymbal shop, and it's all, most of what I do with Round Sound. It's called Round Sound Cymbals, by the way, and I am just focusing on mostly hand hammered cymbals. So Guitar Center and Sam Ash and Sweetwater, those guys are great, and they sell Zildjian and Sabi and Paiste and Meinl, and they do a great job of that stuff. We can all agree that there's tons of that stuff out there. Right. But what I'm trying to focus on with Round Sound is the stuff that you don't get a lot of, that you don't get at your Guitar Centers, that you don't get a chance to see or hear all that often. So that ends up being a lot of the weirder, not weirder, the brands you just don't see from Turkey. And I'm kind of curating a collection of things that I think sound good. And to be honest, I don't think 100% of what cymbal companies put out sound good. So I'm kind of choosing things that I think are the best, or what I think is really good and useful for drummers. And that seems to be working.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No. Go ahead.
Well, I was just, I met you because I had sent students to you in the past, but I finally went with one of my students to buy some jazz cymbals. And, we live in San Francisco Bay Area, which is a big metropolitan area, and there's really nowhere to buy cymbals anymore. I mean, there used to be a couple of shops that would cater to the pros and the jazz drummers, and they would have a nice collection. And, before the days of the internet, that's kind of where you went. You went and you were trusting that they curated a good selection, and you hoped to find something that you liked there. And then, invariably you would, because there weren't that many places to go, and you just found something you kind of, liked enough or loved maybe. And, the big box, there aren't many drum shops left in the Bay Area at all. There used to be maybe a dozen. Now there's one.
Yeah.
Right. And then there's Guitar Center, the big box store, and they don't cater to the kind of to pro drummers and to drummers looking for hand hammered cymbals. They're selling, the stamped stuff for the beginners and the students who are just picking it up, and that's,
which is great. that stuff needs to happen too. We need that stuff.
Sure,
Right.
sure. But it's become more challenging, as you guys know, to buy cymbals for yourselves. I mean, we all have cymbal endorsements. That's great. So we have, hand selection from our A&R people, and that's great. But for most drummers out there, there just aren't. There's no longer a place where you can get your hands on the cymbal and check it out and see what it sounds like. You're left trying to put your headphones on and listen to these sound samples on the internet. And I can tell you from personal experience that, I've bought a couple of cymbals like that in the past, and you listen and you think, and okay, yeah, you compare and you got all your videos, and then you get it, and like, oh man, it sounds totally different than I thought.
Yeah, it's hard.
Oh yeah,
Real challenge. Yep.
And so
I have.
by far the best way to buy a cymbal, we all agree, hands down, is put your sticks on it, right? Play it, stretch it out, feel it. And Jason, you've got a shop now in your studio, and you've got a drum kit set up, and you've got, how many cymbals do you keep in your inventory now?
It's probably around 600, I think.
Wow, man, that's a lot of cymbals. That's quite an investment too, I can imagine.
Well, yes, and a lot of it I'm trying to do is not only like the Turkish brands, but there's been we're kind of in a golden age of boutique cymbal making right now. There's a lot of guys doing it. There's a lot of guys making their own cymbals. You get a blank from Turkey. You either get the bell stamped in it, or you just get a semi flat disc to your gram weight specification, and then you hammer. That's something I've also been doing, is doing my own hammering and lathing of cymbals.
Oh,
wow!
Doing that during the pandemic. Some people were making bread. I was like, I'm gonna make cymbals. So,
go big, man.
Yeah, I mean, turns out relying on a performance career during a pandemic turns out to be a bad idea. So,
no kidding.
Having something else like the cymbal shop to fall back on, and I got to tell you, during the pandemic, cymbal sales went up. People were at home a lot, so a lot of people buying cymbals. But anyway, so I'm getting a lot of these cymbals. A lot of the cymbals that I carry are from guys like Ray Byrne, Mike Mangiello, Timothy Roberts, Paul Francis, who worked at a big company named Zildjian for a long time, for about 30 years. He did a lot of the, I think he did the Carope series. Pre-aged K. He's responsible for a lot. Anything, like any recording that you hear, Paul Francis probably had a part in those cymbal sounds. And he left Zildjian and is now making cymbals under his own name, Cymbal Craftsman. And I carry his cymbals, and they're great. Imagine if we all kind of look for like the Holy Grail made in Istanbul Ks. Those are kind of the hot commodity. But Paul has, I would say, is probably the closest thing you can get to a person that could actually recreate that cymbal for you. And I have those. So those kind of cymbals that you just can't find, that are just really, I just love the sound of cymbals. And despite guitar players and everybody else kind of hating them, and engineers, but I think they're very cool, and I think we can all agree that they're very cool and unique.
They are
kind of trying to encourage diversity in our cymbal sounds. And, I agree with you. It has to, we have to be able to try the cymbal. And it's very important. That's why I opened the shop. I was like, there's nowhere to go. Like you said, Jeremy, there's nowhere to go in the Barrie to find this stuff.
Right.
Dub's Drum Basement has some, but they're out in Dublin.
Right. That's the closest one anymore. That's a 45-minute drive.
Right, exactly. And maybe you don't want to go out there, or you don't have the time. Or you can go up to a Drummer's Tradition in San Rafael, and he's got a few pieces, and they're, it's mostly new stuff. So where do you go to find a Bosphorus? Bosphorus makes great cymbals, Istanbul Mehmet. All these guys make great cymbals, and they also make cymbals that don't sound good. So I'm trying to find the stuff that I think sounds good, and that we can all agree on that are, that's good.
I got a question for you, Jason. I have what you said a second ago, as far as like we're in the golden age of boutique cymbals. I think there's a lot of that in drums in general, because there's a lot of people making boutique drums, boutique
Yeah.
snare drums and whatnot.
Yeah.
That's a big commitment, not only to start a cymbal company, but to make them. You
Right.
know, how did you, what sparked that? What sparked that flame of, hey, I want to try not only selling cymbals, but I want to grab some blanks and I want to try to make them. Just curiosity to see if you could do it.
Yeah. Honestly, I've always wanted to do it. I've always looked at a cymbal and I'm like, we've got a sheet of bronze here. Like,
Right.
This started out as a flat piece of bronze, and how do we get into this shape? How do we get to this sound? It's always fascinated me. It's always kind of blown me away that you can't ever recreate. If you hand hammer a cymbal, you cannot recreate it.
Right.
Ever again. Like, that's it. That's the piece.
It's like a jazz tune.
Yeah. There it is. And that's we have that instrument on this earth for a certain amount of time, and eventually it will break and go back into copper and tin. But
That's
there's
cool.
that instrument, and that's fascinating to me.
Yeah.
So the pandemic really spurred it on, because I wasn't doing anything. I wasn't playing gigs. I wasn't playing shows. I don't teach a lot. That's not where I get most of my income. I have maybe 2 students. So I was like, let's figure out what else we can do. And when I look at a cymbal and I see you can go to see various hammering videos. There's a lot more now, but there's a famous Bosphorus video where they kind of start from beginning to end. They make you can see them just hammer out a Master Series ride, and you can just watch them do the technique. And I was like, to me, it's not unknowable. I'm like, we're literally taking a hammer and hitting it on a piece of metal with a piece of metal underneath it. Like, that is not rocket surgery, as they say. This is like, to me, it's not unknowable. And I kind of have we'll just figure it out,
Right.
Sorry.
No, I was just gonna say, when I moved into my house, I had to rebuild the deck, and I'm like, I don't know how to rebuild a deck, but there's enough YouTube videos now that we can do this. So, most of the cymbals I've made so far don't sound that great, but some of them do, and I'm getting there. And it's like anything. I'm like, we can figure out how to do this.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not like people it's not like Istanbul Mehmet is hiring the best and brightest that Turkey has to offer to hammer cymbals.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's a very challenging, hard art form. And it takes a long time to figure out how to do it correctly, but it's not unknowable. Like, you can do it. So you just have to have the kind of, I come from the Midwest, and I just kind of a head down attitude.
I love that. And I think that it kind of reminds me of, it is basically blacksmithing. I mean, it's you watch somebody hammer a cymbal, and it kind of gets this thing going in your mind's eye of somebody, forging a knife or a sword or something. It's almost medieval. It's really, and when you watch somebody hammer a cymbal, it's very interesting. And I never thought of it this way until listening to you, but it's it's there for a little while, then it goes back into the earth. Again, blacksmithing. That's really cool, man. That's what. Is it super loud? I mean, I've seen it done at NAMM, but I mean, you wear hearing protection. It just got to be louder than heck.
Oh yeah. Definitely wear hearing protection. It is very primal in the kind of the drummer way. Like Jeremy, I was reading your book, and you fantastic book, by the way. You touch on a lot of subjects that are that I think we as drummers kind of all come to, but you set them out eloquently. And
thank you so much.
Yeah, it's very good. But thing you talk about, kind of the rhythm of the universe, and kind of we're all in a rhythm, and hammering a cymbal. I'm like, hey man, I'm a drummer. I already know how to move my arms in space and time in a relatively rhythmic fashion. Same thing with hammering a cymbal. When you get into the zone, there's a little rhythm to it. You're hammering, and it's like its own rhythm.
Daniel Glass talks about, I took a hands lesson with him one time, and he was talking about the old guys, the prisoners that used to work on the chain gang, and they had to hammer and swing it and sort of figure out this really economical motion to move the hammer. And he talked about this using the same concept when you're playing the cymbal. Really interesting.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Hey, Jason, do you know that is there a difference between when you get it right and when you get it wrong as far as the end result? Do you know the difference between that? Is that
As far as hammering cymbals?
Yeah, as far as like how far to go and when is it right and what's the difference between what's going to end up having hammered a good sounding cymbal versus having hammered a bad one?
Yeah. I mean, the ultimate kind of test is your ears, and you play it and you're like, well, that does not sound great. So you can either keep hammering. There's a lot. I'm kind of simplifying things, but there's so much that goes into hammering a cymbal, the profile, the, for lack of a better word, tension between the top and the bottom, and then the lathing. So you can start hammering and you can kind of get into rough shape. And here's another thing that happens. So when you're hammering a cymbal, you have to let it rest, because you've spent maybe 2 or 3 hours hammering on it, and you've kind of got a rough shape, and it's kind of there. It's kind of in a cymbal shape. And you play it and you're like, yeah, that's okay. We've got something here. And you have to let that rest for at least 24 hours. You come back.
Really?
It's going to sound completely different the next day.
Wow.
Huh.
Wow. No
because
kidding.
you've literally beat the crap out of the metal, and you've activated the alloy, and it needs time to come back and rest. Because what you've done, anytime the hammerhead hits the surface, you are spreading out the metal. And you're making a little thing, and it spreads out, and all these hammer marks spread out. That's why you take a flat surface and then you hammer on it, it raises the cymbal up. It kind of grows because you're expanding the metal. You're pushing it out, right? So you have to let it come back and rest. And so Chip, to what you were saying, you kind of have to, how do you know when it's done? There's things, much better smiths than I can tell you all this stuff in a much more eloquent fashion, but you get to a point where it sounds good, and you can you start to have your own style. You're like, I want to have, I'm going to do my old K style. I'm going to do my A style cymbals. And you can, if you're a very good smith, you have techniques and ways that you go about shaping at the beginning to get to that point.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And then the lathing again is a big factor in how the cymbal sounds, because when you impart lathing onto the cymbal, you are kind of, in a sense, it's hard to think about it this way, but you are also imparting tension. You are, in a way, rotationally hammering the cymbal by putting a lathe on it, because you're pressing the metal and it's pressing back against you, and you're shaving off stuff. And so you are kind of hammering in that sense too. It's wild.
I just use a meat thermometer.
Fine. Yeah.
That's
you get that thing to 165, it's done.
Exactly.
How you know it's done?
Right. You want it medium rare.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Hey guys, real quick, I wanted to mention that our friend Peter Retzklaff is watching, Jim Royal is watching, Fred Fisher's watching, and Matt Starr's watching.
Oh, what's up?
Hey, Matt.
Awesome to see you guys.
Hey, you mentioned Matt at the beginning of the show, Jeremy. I've taken a couple of his classes, his coaching classes. Matt truly is he's the real deal, man. Not only is he a fantastic player, he's a super nice guy. Yeah. We met for coffee up in Hollywood one time, and just a wellspring of knowledge, and he just lays it out there. He's a real nice guy. So thanks for watching, Matt. Jason, I got a question for you. How do you know? Because the hammering and the lathing, right? When do you know it's time to go from, okay, we're going to take it and quit beating it and putting it on the lathe? I mean, is there a certain, it's a certain thickness now, or a certain tone, right? Or how do you know?
Well, maybe we start with a kind of, we have an end goal in mind when we start the cymbal.
Right.
This is what we're shooting for. This is what we're trying to get to. And if you want, kind of a thin, wobbly jazz cymbal, and it's a 22-inch blank that you're working with, well, you probably don't want that thing at 3,000 grams to even start with. You're going to start with a cymbal if you want that thin wobbly thing, then you're going to have to start with something and maybe 2,400 grams. It depends on what you're trying to do, because a stiff cymbal at 3,000 grams, there's no way it's going to wobble. So you could shave forever, and that you're just kind of be defeating yourself at that point. Like, why spend that much time taking off that much weight to get to a thin wobbly cymbal? That being said, you lathe when you think the time is right. You kind of get to the point you're like, okay, I can either keep this as a Turk style cymbal, or I think lathing it is what I need to do. And that's been my ultimate goal all the time. I'm going to be lathing this thing top and bottom. And you lathe it, you play it, let it rest for a day, come back, play it. You're like, I don't like it. What can I do? Maybe I want some more, some stick definition, and I want to kind of hollow out the mid range and kind of get a higher profile, more of an umbrella shape, like a Jeff Hamilton cymbal or something. And so you're going to do some more top hammering and stiffen that thing up, and kind of go back at it again and lathe when you need to. It kind of changes. Like, once you start hammering on a cymbal, you can't go back. You can't. There's no putting the toothpaste back in the tube. So you're at a certain point, and maybe you've made a mistake, and now you're on to, well, I wanted to make this kind of cymbal, but now I think this is going to be one of these kind of cymbals. Right. So
just kind of spin on your heels.
Right. For me, that happens a lot, because I'm at the beginning of my cymbal making journey. The guys like Paul Francis and Timothy Roberts and Ray Byrne and Philippe Boudreau and Mangiello, all these guys can get there fast, and they know, like, I'm going to make you this cymbal. When I order from Paul Francis, I was like, hey man, I've got a customer who wants the Nefertiti ride, like the famous Tony Williams ride on Nefertiti on the Miles Davis recording. And I was like, well, I told the customer, I'm like, man, I want that ride. Everybody wants that ride. But I was like, I'll call Paul and see what he can do. And Paul's like, yeah, I can do that. He said, you mean the Nefertiti ride on the Miles Davis recording? I said, yeah, that's the one. He said, well, I've got it here with me. The actual Nefertiti ride. I was like, oh, wait, what? He's like, yeah, it's here at my desk. And so he's like, I can recreate that for you. And so those guys, they can kind of get, yeah, go ahead. Oh yeah, exactly. I'll take one. Yeah, I'll take all of them. So they're going to sound like that. Great. But those guys are real true smiths, and they can kind of recreate stuff, and you can tell them what you want, and they can get there.
Jason, when I went to visit your studio the first time with my student, I was super impressed with how quickly you were able to sort of help him suss out the sound that he was looking for in his mind, right? And you would be whipping cymbals on and off the stands. You had like 5 or 6 different ride stands, and it was like, how about this? How about this? How about this? And very quickly you were able to sort of get him focused on where he needed to go. And I was struck by your your knowledge and your vocabulary about the sounds of the cymbal and the profiles of the sounds. And how has running the shop, like, rewind before you started this whole deal and you were just a professional drummer, how has starting this shop and then subsequently building your own even changed how you hear cymbals and what you think about when you listen to cymbals?
Yeah, well, thank you. I appreciate that. How did I get there? I think I started with just loving cymbals. I'm still in love with them, even though I've heard thousands and thousands of them. Trying to figure out what, like, when you say I want it dry and trashy, like, okay, I have to figure out what that means to you. Right. I know what it means to me, but I have to figure out what that means to you. And this kind of I think dovetails with studio recording when the client says, I want it to sound like, we're underwater, but like the White Album mixed with Stairway to Heaven. I'm like, okay, okay, we have to synthesize. I don't know what that means. It's my job to figure it out. So to figure out what that means inside your head and in real time, and then synthesize it and put it back out in a way that we can all get there. So when I'm pulling stuff out for your student, I'm like, I think this is what you're talking about. I don't know, but so you play it and you tell me, like, no, that sounds terrible. I'm like, great. Then try this one. And like, okay, that's closer. So I can kind of get there in that way. So I know that if you want something dry, I'm going to pull out a Turk style cymbal. And a Turk style for me means it's unlathed. So we're having an unlathed cymbal. We're going to start there, and we're going to, you're like, I need something with more definition. Okay, if you want something with more definition and you want it drier, that means maybe a heavier weighted cymbal so in a Turk style. If it's too thin, you're going to lose stick definition. It's going to be a little more washy. So all of these things, I just have to figure out what you're talking about and what those terms mean to you in your head.
Right.
How I can put it together and find
something. Right. That makes sense because, talking about cymbals is kind of like dancing about architecture.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Right? You're trying to like get to this, describe with words this sound that you have in your head, and not everybody uses the same vocabulary. As a matter of fact, most people, I think, don't even know the words to use at all to describe the cymbal sounds you're looking for.
Yeah.
And again, these are all these. I'm sorry, what'd you say, Chip?
You're like the cymbal whisperer.
Yeah. He is.
I don't know about that, but
you are. No, it's decided. That should be your tagline on your show.
There you go.
All these companies come up with these names. You have to market the cymbal somehow. You can't just call it cymbal A or cymbal B.
Right.
You have to call it the dark custom dry trash thing. So all these terms are.
I played that one.
Oh yeah, it's a great cymbal.
It's a great cymbal.
So
I got it a backline gig in Indiana once.
and we have to call them something, and then they become kind of commonplace, and they become like, what's a 5A? I don't know. It's a 5 and it's an A. Sure.
Right.
These don't really mean anything. They don't have any basis and scientific factor, So, and when we get into trouble because, well, what does the word dry mean to you? It can mean a million different things. So that's why we kind of have to synthesize a bunch of different terms and figure it out. Figure out what you're looking for. And
you have you said over 600 cymbals in your inventory at any time. So you got when they come in, you unbox them, you play them, and you actually make a demo video. Is that right?
I make a video for each cymbal that's on the website. And so when I first started this, I thought it was going to be just for drummers coming into the shop in Oakland. That in the Bay Area, we're going to have drummers come in, they're going to try stuff, and then quickly realize that everything is online now. As we all know, we're online right now, all of us. And the challenging part, if you guys have ever tried to buy a cymbal, which I'm sure you have online, is that we don't know what it's at. We can't feel it under our stick. So what I'm doing with my videos is I'm trying to recreate what I think it sounds like in the room on an iPhone. So when I listen, I spent time figuring out with the microphone I use to figure out in my room when I play it with my Peter Erskine Jazz Ride, ride stick from Vic Firth, what it's going to sound like when you play it back compressed on your tiny little iPhone speaker. Right. So again, I'm EQing and compressing only to serve the end goal to make it sound like what I think it sounds like in the room when you were listening to it on your phone, if that makes any sense.
It does. And I have to ask this because, as Jeremy said, we've all said that we've bought cymbals online before. Years ago, I bought cymbals online and I'd listened to it and I got the cymbal. It wasn't even close to what it sounded like. And going into it, I've been playing long enough that I knew it wasn't going to be. I knew that when I got the cymbal, it wasn't going to sound like it did through this little speaker on my computer or on my phone. How do you do that? What does your ear do, or what do you
Yeah.
How do you, I don't even know how to put it into words. How do you make it sound like, okay, this is what's going to sound like in real life versus
Right.
your iPhone? It's impossible, I would think.
It is impossible. And that's, just a huge caveat with Cymbals.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
We just know that it's, it's not going to be that way. And a lot of times I get people, the majority of the feedback I get is, thank you for doing it this way. Whatever you're doing to the recording is very faithful to what I'm hearing when I get this.
Cool.
Great. Awesome.
So I would say of the feedback I get, positive versus negative, I would say it's like 95% positive. You're
Good.
doing it the right way. And it's only the other times when people are like, well, it sounds different when I'm using my sticks. I'm like, I can't, like if you're using a 2B or you're using a drum corps stick, it's going to sound way different than, and it's impossible. I can't predict what Chip is going to sound like in his room with his sticks and his playing style. And then he takes it to his gig at the yacht club, and it's like it sounds different when I play it outside. Like, of course, it's gonna do that. Because, So I only go. So again, my goal is I'm very upfront. I'm like, this is the stick I'm using. Here's what I'm doing. I only EQ and compress or limit in service to what I think it sounds like in the room when you play it on your phone, and that's just from I think years of playing in studios and hearing stuff, and speakers,
there's also like that every drummer, every great jazz drummer sounds different on the ride cymbal. You could put them in the same room with the same stick with the same ride cymbal, and you'd hear that cymbal sounding really different.
Yes.
Yep.
Exactly. Yep. That I tell people that a lot when they come into the shop and they're playing. Jeremy, you come in and you play a cymbal. I'm like, well, I've never really liked that cymbal, but when you play it, it sounds good. Right. So maybe that's just not the cymbal for me. And just the way I play it, I can't pull out this stuff. And that's another cool thing about cymbals. When you play it, it sounds awesome. When I play it,
it's like the Harry Potter's wand.
Yeah.
Right? The cymbal chooses you.
Yeah, exactly. Kind of. I mean, not to be too out there, but yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, Jason, do your cymbals have anything that describes them or possibly describes the sound in relation to something similar from another company?
Do your cymbals have anything that describes them? Possibly describes the sound in relation to I'm not sure exactly what he's asking. Can you?
It sounds to me like it's like, can you compare them to like a Sabian or a Boss?
Do you have labels on your cymbals that they can compare to?
Right. No, I don't do that. Because then we start to play favorites, and I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
And I want to say like, well, in a relation to a Zildjian K from 1948, this one doesn't sound like that. Like, I think I when people come into the shop, I very purposefully do not put up signage. There's no posters. There's no Sabian sign. There's no Peisty sign. I don't want any of that. I just want people to come in and use their ears. So it's hard for me. Yeah. Again, we have to compare because that's the only way we can do it. We can relate things, but I try not to. I try to just let people use theirs. I'm like, does this sound good to you? Okay, you chose the $300 cymbal, and then does this sound good? You're like, oh, well, you chose the $700 cymbal. I'm sorry. Like, I'm not, I'll put up everything. I'll put up the Dream cymbal versus the Paul Francis cymbal. And if the Dream sounds good to you, then take that one. Right. That's the cymbal for you.
Right. It is completely subjective, right?
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Well, I think, instruments in general are subjective. What I like may not be something that you like. That's the beautiful thing about art. You take a blue paintball, throw it at the wall, 40 people are going to say, clean that mess up. And then 40 other people are going to go, I'll give you $100,000 for it. It is subjective. It really is.
Yeah.
And I think that would be the hard part, in back to what we were asking a minute ago. Okay, when is it done? When I'm making a cymbal, when is it done? Because it is so subjective. Yeah, this is done and it's ready to go out, and I'm going to sell it. That's got to be a tough one.
I like, if I may jump in, I like that your shop is your shop. You know what I mean? Like, it's not just a shop and I'm the proprietor and I got cymbals coming in and out. Like, no, you hand select you procure this selection of cymbals based on your evolved ear and aesthetic, right?
Yeah. I mean, I'm trying, like I know what if Bosphorus tells me if I need a Bosphorus cymbal and I want a 20-inch Turk, I have a general idea of what, because they're so one of the more consistent companies of the hand hammered makers. I have a general idea of what a Bosphorus 20-inch Turk at like 23 to 2,500 grams is going to sound like. I have a general, like, kind of, it's in there. And just the same with all these other companies. I'm like, I kind of have an idea. It's not like I know exactly what it's going to sound like. I just have a rough idea of what this sounds like. And a lot of the companies will let me order by weight. So
Jason, at the carnival, there's like the guy who will guess your age and guess your weight.
Yeah.
You used to be the guy with a blindfold and you can guess the cymbal.
Oh man, I appreciate that you think I could do that, but I think I would fail miserably. But
I'm teasing, of course, but like you already on your own have amassed like a knowledge that very few people in this world have.
Well, I think I think I'm just in love with cymbals, and I think and a lot of drummers, to me, like when I see drummers play or I see drummers come in for, I see them on sessions or something, or I see them playing out live. A lot of times people are just hitting them and they're not thinking about it. There's no intention. There's not a lot of, like, especially if it's a crash cymbal, just, okay, boom, like, right. There's intent. I want intention there. I'm like, why are we hitting that thing?
Right. Yeah. What sound are you trying to make?
Yeah, exactly. Are you doing it just because we're at the top of the chorus, or do you really want that sound there?
Yeah.
And this is important to me. So,
speaking of playing drums, you're playing drums and recording remotely now, right? You're doing a studio. Can you tell us about how you got into that?
So a lot of most of my career when I got to the Bay Area was performance based, doing a lot of jazz gigs and rock and roll and pop and stuff like that. And then I started, there was a studio in San Francisco called Tiny Telephone Recording Studio. And for a while there was 2 rooms. San Francisco had A and B room, and then they opened an Oakland studio. And the San Francisco room has since closed, but now they just have the Oakland room. And there's a guy there, the studio owner named John Vanderslice. This is crazy. I happened to live next door to the studio, and I didn't kind of know what was there. So because I'm in this world of like playing drums live and doing this stuff, and wasn't in the studio stuff. And a friend of mine had borrowed a couple of my drums to record at Tiny Telephone. He had double booked himself, and he said, well, you should call Jason Slota. These are his drums. He lives right there. And then I ended up working on an album, one of John Vanderslice's albums, and the album came out. He's like, hey, Matthias is going to do the US tour. Do you want to go to Europe with me in the fall? And I was like, we'll do that. That started a long history with JV, John Vanderslice, and I still talk to him all the time. He's in LA now, but he kind of installed me as the house drummer at Tiny Telephone. So it's kind of a very working class studio. He kind of hangs his hat on analog. He still records the 2-inch tape. So he's really kind of a purist. You can do Pro Tools, but he's also a purist in that he wants to record on analog. So he kind of installed me as the guy. So anytime someone comes through, you've got your batch of songs, you come in, you just need a drummer. I'm going to show up and play your songs. And so, I've done that for a number of years now. I don't know when I started, at least 10 years, I would say. And that kind of led into, having a kit set up all the time with mics, always mic'd. And now that kit is set up. That's a Gretsch round badge kit.
Mm-hmm.
What year? Do you know?
That is a reissue that Steve Maxwell, I think, had made. I want to say it's like 10 years old, but it's got the rail consolette on it.
Yeah.
Like the attachment on the bass drum.
Yeah.
And then there's a 16 and 18-inch floor tom, 20-inch kick. And I found that used. It was a guy that just never played it, and
Wow.
I'd always wanted a round badge. I was like, this, as a studio musician, you got to have all the different sounds. You got to have, if you're a guitar player, you've got a telly, you've got a Strat, you've got, your acoustic guitar. So I have a bunch of different drums, and now this kit is set up because do you guys know Dunlop guitar pedals?
Yeah.
So they're based up here in the Bay Area in Benicia. They're super awesome people. They really encourage and hang their hat on hiring musicians. So when they have an advertisement coming out or their new pedal or whatever, they're making an ad for it, they hire real musicians. They don't use, they don't just AI. Basically, they hire people like me. And so this kit is set up because just talked to him before we got on our chat here. He said, "This I'm sending you a track. It's your reference is King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard. I don't know if you know that band.
Yeah,
they're a killer band. Last time I saw them, they had a double drum set. When I saw them live, there were 2 drummers playing exactly the same thing.
That's cool.
So this is like kind of proggy, a lot high energy rock and roll. But these guys are like, when I saw them, it was incredible. They're like playing exactly the same thing at the same time, kind of facing each other. Awesome. Anyway, that was the reference point. So I have this set up, and after that, I kind of, I'll start tracking when we're done here.
Right on.
Yeah,
cool.
It's cool. I love it. I love the studio life because I don't have to be anywhere. I don't have to drive down to San Jose, pack up my drums and be gone for like 6 hours to play, to play the gig. I can be home at night with the kids. It's great. That's awesome.
Is that kind of where you're headed now? I mean, you're not playing as many gigs. It's mostly session work and studio work and whatnot.
Yes. I never try to cut myself off from anything.
Right.
If Sean Pelton happens to call me, he's like, "Hey, I need you to fill in for me on Saturday Night Live." I'm like, "Great." That's never going to happen. But if it did, be in New York in a second,
Right.
But I've got my church gig on Sundays that I do. I've got the various gigs around town that I do. I've got my my art band that is, the music's really difficult. It's very challenging, and no one makes any money, and it takes a bunch of time. I've got that band, and I do that stuff. I play around. I'll go on tour if the money's right. I don't, but at this point, I just love studio stuff because I can really focus in and get anal, for lack of a better term.
Okay, so that's a nice segue into my next question. Being the cymbal whisperer, as Jeremy said, and really being so anal about that, and then being a session player, I'm in my recording studio right now. I know how easy it is to just that one note. It's just Or you like that with cymbals when you go into a session and you have the take, it sounds great, but there's that one cymbal. Why did I use that one? Oh my God, it's ruined. Do you hang on to that, or do you let it go? How do you? It's got to be a tough one.
I've learned to let it go.
Mm-hmm.
At first, I was like, nope, it's got to be redone. Got to redo it. I've learned that, especially in recording, my performance or my take, the way I hear it is not the way you're hearing it.
Yes. Thank you for that. Thank you. Yeah.
And I have to learn to let it go.
Yeah.
I was just in Portland for a couple of days at Jackpot Studios. Larry Crane founded it. He's the guy that started Tape Op magazine. I don't know if you guys know Tape Op. Anyway, I was at his studio, and the session was a bunch of musicians in a room playing live together, playing songs that we'd never heard before. So the guy shows me the song, shows the band the song, and after the first run through of the song, we're recording the first take because he wants that energy. The client wants that energy. So we've got all these people in the room coming up with parts. And there's no time for you to overthink your part. It's great. It's a great exercise.
I love that. Yeah,
I can imagine.
It's great. It focuses you like a laser, and you come up with your part, and you lean into it, and you give it all you have from the very beginning. And so that transfers to that. This a bit of an aside. I've done probably close to 800 songs with this guy, this particular client, in this manner, where he shows me the song, we play it, and you have to come up with your parts super fast. And
I love it.
The way it transfers is that when I go and do this thing for Dunlop Guitars, I've got my part down like, that's the part. You lean into your first instinct and sell it and go that way. What happens when you do that is that you're going to make a mistake. And there's going to be, like Bob Ross, the painter, said, happy accidents. And you have to be, I'm okay with some of those. It depends on the session, depends on the client. Some things have to be like straight down the middle, absolutely perfect. Yeah. Others, I will leave little blips and bloops in there because that's how you know it's a human.
Right.
Let's not Apple, when you're on Pro Tools or Logic or something, you can Apple Z and undo your mistake, or just cut and paste. Like, I don't do that. I do a whole take front to beginning. I never.
I don't like when people do that. It makes it so sterile.
Yeah. Right. That's the whole reason you're using a live drummer is to get the feel.
Right.
And that's like, yeah.
I'm going to jump on my soapbox here for a second because and forgive me, but I've been in sessions where you get a take and it's really good, and then the producer or the engineer, okay, I'm going to line it up now, and you weren't off the click, you were just there or there. I mean, you were on the click, but you're a human being, and now all of a sudden they take this thing and it's like, why didn't you just
quantize it?
They quantize it. Why didn't you just use the computer?
But I
hate that.
I hear you, and I think that's frustrating. But again, for me, like, if that's what the session calls for, and they need it to be that, then okay, fine. Then at this point, I'm just a specialized tool operator. I'm like,
right.
That's fine. I don't have a problem with it. If you need to chop it up, great. But the sessions that I think that are the most fun are like the one I was doing in Portland, where the guy's like, I just want the raw energy. I want the first take vibe. We never do more than 2 takes of the song ever.
Yeah.
That's it.
Cool.
Like, because the third take, now we're
you've lost the magic.
It's gone.
You're thinking the music. You're not playing it. Yeah.
Am I playing the form correctly? Like, if you don't know, if you're right on the edge of not knowing where the chorus is, that's where he wants you. He's like, I think this is it. And you're building and you hit it and you're like, that wasn't it. And then or most of the time you're like, that's it. And that's the energy he wants.
Right.
But if that's that session. If the session is like, I need it to sound like a robot, then you do that and they chop it up, and that's fine too.
Yeah.
That's part of it. That's
very cool. Very cool. Do you have any advice for younger people who are interested in becoming a studio drummer? Like, what would you say to somebody who's maybe 13 and they're like, one day I want to do what you're doing? What would you tell them?
I mean, I don't know that it's changed as much a lot has changed from when I was a kid growing up. There was no YouTube, but that's a massive well of information. But the one thing I would say is get out there and meet as many musicians as you can. Play with as many different people. Play as many different styles. Like, I got started playing classically. I was a classical percussionist.
Oh wow!
I do 4-mallet marimba. My teacher, we're going to do 4-mallet marimba. We're going to do vibraphone. She would make me audition for orchestras that she was auditioning for. And I was like, she's like, you're not going to win, but you're going to take the audition. And that kind of stuff, that level of commitment is like, that's huge. So I learned how to play all the orchestra rep. All that stuff is in there. And then in high school, I was like, I just want to play drum set. And, then it was jazz studies and going that route. But I would say for the kids, play is everything. Don't pigeonhole yourself. There's so much amazing music out there, whether or not you're into it or not. I can even get into top 40 country. It's not my thing, but if it's done well and it's done amazing, like if there's a tension in there and it's, you can tell that people are really into it, then yeah, I can find something in there that's good.
It's easy to underestimate a music genre that you're not into.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Good point,
Yeah.
Chip.
Yeah.
Good point.
Really good point. I'm
Yeah.
always a believer that, like, if it's good, people ask me what music do I like to play. I'm like, I like to play good music. I'll play in any band that sounds good. That's doing it for me. And
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
I remember, Jeremy, you were talking, I think you were playing with your son and a couple of kids that would, that he was playing with, and they're like, wow, I didn't know you could play that style of music. And
oh yeah,
your answer was, fucking A, I'm a pro. I love that.
yeah, at all, man. Yeah.
I love that. I just love that.
Yeah.
That's
Jason, what's your favorite style of music to play?
The one that pays me. No.
The one with the most zeros at the end of the
Right,
song.
exactly.
Exactly.
Honest, I've had this question a lot from people, and my honest, real truth answer is that I much like Jeremy, like whatever whenever there's something with intention and passion behind it, that's what I want to be a part of.
Beautiful.
And I don't necessarily have a particular. I mean, I kind of know that I'm better at playing rock and roll and straight eights than I am at playing like up tempo jazz stuff. So I get called for that more because I'm better at grooving and like just hitting a groove. That's more my thing, and more that I love doing it. I don't know if it's my favorite, like playing funk drums is awesome. Playing playing something like Bill Ward and Black Sabbath is also fun.
Jason, I got a question for you. When as far as your own cymbal setup, the one that you use, you have your pick of the litter.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you have, a setup for different styles. You have your jazz setup and your rock setup and maybe your funk setup, whatever. What can you tell us some of the cymbals that you've chosen?
Yes. So
Great question.
if I'm going, let's say I have to go to the studio to record the album with the client, and the client has not provided me any demos. I don't know anything more than what I found on the website.
Right.
So, the client has hired me. I'm like, who is this person? And then I find out what kind of music they do. Without knowing what we're doing, here's what I'm going to take to the studio. A Paiste Giant Beat 20-inch cymbal. I'm going to take an old pair, like a 70s pair of New Beat hi-hats. I am going to take, where is it? Let me see. I'm going to take a Zildjian K Custom Dry Ride from the 90s, 80s, 90s, kind of the Dave Weckl cymbal. Yeah, so it's like a thick plate steel thing. It's like tink, 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 and it just gives ping. That's all it does. There's no resonance, and a lot of times that's what you want in a session. You just want the attack. You don't want, because engineers hate the cymbals. So I'm taking that. I'm also taking a pair of Sabian AAX frequency hats. They're called Freak hats.
Huh.
Yeah. Those I kind of see those as more like, they're like New Beats, but they're a little cleaner. The attack it's just a little more crisp. It's a lot more crisp, but those end up working really well. And then I'll take, I have a Bosphorus 18-inch gold raw, which is, it's kind of like an A custom style. It's very shimmery, but it's darker, but it still cuts through somehow. I take it, and then I'll take some various like weird, trashy sounding cymbals. But those are kind of my go-tos that are always in the bag, that I'm always taking. And
right on.
Right there, I have kind of a lot of
range.
There's a range there, especially the Paiste Giant Beat. It's like for me, it's a crash cymbal more than anything. But at 20 inches, if you play it light, it's super clean, super precise, and then you crash and it's got this big kind of glorious wash that, as long as you control it and play it correctly, it fits in a lot of different styles.
Cool.
It's really well.
So it's safe to say you're not in with a company. You're not endorsed by a company.
I'm not.
And
I mean, I have a drum company. I do play CNC drums. Those guys.
Well, yeah, I meant cymbals.
Cymbals,
and
no. Yeah.
Is that by choice because you because you want to have this gigantic palette that not one company makes.
I do, and I've been offered cymbal endorsements, and they say we want you. I'm like, what does this constitute? What does this mean when I'm an endorser, an artist? Right. And they say you need to play exclusively our cymbals anytime you're playing. I'm like, okay, I can't do that. So, that's just for me. I understand why people do it. I totally get it. It makes sense. Right. There's just so much sound available to limit yourself to just one company is great. And I understand, like, there's Paiste guys, and you can just live in the Paiste world and be totally fine. Right. You can live in the Sabian world and be totally fine. I would be happy if I was with that, and that's what I did. But to me, there's just so many. There's a sea of colors. That
I think that's amazing. That's really cool, and especially in a day and age where, that's where a lot of people gravitate towards. And I play Sabian cymbals because I love them. My opinion is, that's for me. But I think that a lot of people associate, like, well, I'm endorsed by this company, and that's what they, that's what's more important to them than the sound. And you're such a purist of what with what you are doing. My hat's off to you. I mean, that's amazing. It's great work, man. Yeah. Great work.
I like it. Kind of goes back to my kind of just approach to drumming. Like, what is our intention? Why are we doing this? What is the point of us playing drums and cymbals on this particular piece of music?
Where's the passion? Yeah.
What are we doing? Are we playing a big band gig? Okay. Then that means certain types of drums. To me, that means certain types of drums and certain types of cymbals that are going to do that. I need something that's going to cut through all the trumpets. Right. I need, if I'm playing a salsa gig, again, I'm going to need something that's going to cut through everything. Mm-hmm. But if I'm playing at a coffee shop, I want a cymbal that I can barely touch, and it was
right.
You have to. It's different. You need a different sound for different.
Very cool.
Whatever you do.
Right. Yeah. That's actually a really nice way to wrap up, because we're just about out of time here. So, Jason, thank you so much for coming on the show, man. It's been a pleasure to have you. I learned so much from talking to you.
Yeah.
I'm happy to make your acquaintance and your friendship, and I hope I get to see you play sometime soon.
Yeah, man. Yeah. I really appreciate you guys having me on. Excellent questions. You guys are doing a great thing here, so I really appreciate you having me.
Right.
We did forget one question. This is the first show of 2024, and we can't forget the most important question of them all. And I'm sorry, Jeremy. I'm sorry, because you guys are both in the Bay Area, so this might cause some controversy. In your little neck of the woods, where's the best place to get pizza? See, I told you.
Okay. Tony's Pizza Napolitana in North Beach. I think if you're just going to get a slice, I think you're going to be hard pressed to do better than that.
Okay. I don't
just
the name Tony's Lamana.
Yeah, I think that's the name of it. I used to have a gig in North Beach. I used to do Beach Blanket Bagbo on.
Oh yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, I used to play there. So on 2 show days, I would go over to Tony's and get a slice. So
I used to have a regular at the San Francisco Brewing Company just down the street.
Yep. Awesome.
So funny.
So that's what I'm going to go with.
Very good. There you go. It's out there for the world to see forever. So.
All right. Thanks everybody for tuning in. We'll be back next week. We do have some really cool guests coming up in the next couple of months. I'll just throw a teaser out there. We're going to have Todd Sucherman on the show.
Wow.
And also Butch Norton from Lucinda Williams is going to come on. We're so excited to have those guys.
Nice.
Later this month, Robin Flans, who's written a great book about Jeff Procaro, coming out with a new book. She's going to be on, and Mike Packer, who's written the books, who helped put together the books from oh my God, I'm spacing out right now. You guys remember the name of the guy? Ralph Humphrey?
Oh, Ralph Humphrey's books. Yeah. That's right. Sorry, I spaced out too. And then that's right.
Have him on the show as well.
Yeah.
So come see us again next Tuesday, 11 a.m. Pacific time. Thanks again, everybody, and we'll see you next week. Have a great week.
Thanks for watching, everybody.